2 hours. That's how long I stood in that conference room while Hank Delaney screamed at me in front of 28 people. I know because I counted every minute on the clock above the exit sign, not because I was panicking, because I was memorizing. My name is Roy Callahan. I'm 49, senior operations manager at a manufacturing plant outside Pittsburgh, 27 years in this industry. Started on a floor loader at 22, worked every position between there and where I ended up. I'm not the kind of man who talks about his feelings. I'm the kind of man who reads the manual before touching the machine and keeps a paper trail on everything. That habit is what saved me. It was a Tuesday in May. Hank had called a full department meeting, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way he looked when he walked in, like he'd already decided something. He started with the Halcrest numbers, the 9-day delay on the production timeline, and then he just kept going, raising his voice, then louder, then loud enough that people in the hallway stopped walking. He called the delay unacceptable, called my floor management reactive instead of proactive. Then he looked right at me and said I was a relic who couldn't keep up with the pace of the industry. 28 people in that room, my crew, my supervisors, the HR kid who'd been there 3 weeks, nobody moved. Nobody said a word when he slapped the table hard enough to rattle the water pitchers. When he finally stopped, the room felt like a held breath. I heard my own voice come out flat and even, "Anything else, sir?" He blinked like he'd expected tears or an apology or for me to just crumble right there. "No," he said, "just fix it." I nodded, picked up my folder, walked out at the same speed I walked in. I held it together all the way to the lower parking deck. Got in my truck, closed the door, sat there with both hands on the wheel and stared through the windshield at the concrete wall. Then I took a long breath and let it out slow. My hands were shaking, just a little. I noticed that. I let it happen. Then I started the engine and drove home. That night, I didn't sleep much. I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and started writing down everything I already knew. Everything I'd been quietly tracking for the past 14 months. It covered 3 full pages before I even got to the Halcrest situation. Let me tell you who Hank Delaney actually is. He's 51. His father ran this company as VP for 19 years before retiring. When the old man stepped down, Hank stepped in. Not because he earned it, not because the board voted for him based on his record, because the company president, Earl Whitfield, had been golfing with the Delaney family every Saturday morning for as long as anyone could remember. That's the whole story. 5 years ago, Hank personally promoted me to senior operations manager, told me I was the backbone of the floor, said the plant wouldn't run without people like me. For 4 years after that, my department hit every target we were given. We cut waste, improved cycle times, built a crew that other managers tried to poach. Clients requested us by name for site walkthroughs. Then, about a year before that Tuesday, things started shifting. Hank stopped including me in strategy sessions, stopped coming to me directly with feedback, and started routing it through other managers. My department's performance evaluations came back lower than they should have, lower than our actual numbers justified. I pulled the raw production data and compared it to what was going up the chain to Earl's office. The numbers didn't match. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't send emails asking questions. I just kept printing things out and putting them in a folder in my filing cabinet at home. Then came the Halcrest contract. 3 weeks. That's how long my team worked on it. We built a full operational restructure proposal, new workflow sequencing, supplier consolidation, tighter checkpoint intervals. The model showed we could save $340,000 in annual operating costs. My guys put in nights and weekends. We ran the numbers 4 times to make sure they held up. The morning of the client presentation, Hank's assistant called me into his office. Hank didn't look up from his screen when I walked in. Change of plans. Scott's going to lead the presentation today, Scott Delaney. His nephew, 29 years old, less than a year with the company, no project management experience to speak of. My team has been on this for 3 weeks, I said. I kept my voice the same as always. He'll use your groundwork. It'll be fine. I'd like to at least be in the room. Hank looked up. His expression was almost patient, the way a man looks when he's already made up his mind and is just waiting for the other person to stop talking. That won't be necessary, Roy. Focus on your floor numbers. They're looking soft. I walked out. 2 days later, the company-wide email went out from Hank, praising Scott's outstanding leadership on the Halcrest initiative, exceptional client engagement, innovative approach to operational restructuring. My name wasn't in it, neither was anyone else who'd spent those 3 weeks building the thing from scratch. That was 3 weeks before the Tuesday in the conference room. After that email, I stopped waiting to see how things would play out. I started building something of my own practical. People don't rush. That's the first thing I told myself when I started making calls. The first person I reached out to was Carl Murdoch, lead maintenance supervisor, 18 years with the company. The kind of guy who could diagnose a conveyor problem by sound alone, who trained half the floor and never got credit for it. He'd been passed over for department manager 3 times despite having the strongest technical record in the building. The last time, the position went to a 34-year-old who'd transferred in from a smaller facility and spent his first month asking Carl how things worked. I met Carl at a diner on a Saturday morning 12 blocks from the plant, not a place either of us went regularly. I got there first, took a booth in the back, ordered coffee. When he sat down, I didn't waste time. "I'm not here to complain about Hank," I said. "I'm here because I'm doing something about him, and I need to know if you're in before I say anything else." Carl wrapped both hands around his mug and looked at me for a long moment. "The Howcrest thing wasn't the first time he's pulled that move on you." "No, and those performance reviews that came back low on your department last quarter." "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "I've got 3 years of documentation on my own numbers. Every performance review, every target, every output report. I kept copies of everything because something never felt right." He set the mug down. "I'm in." Next was Donna Pruitt, compliance coordinator, 11 years with the company. Donna was the one who had flagged irregularities in the vendor bidding process 8 months earlier. She'd written a formal memo, sent it up through the proper channel, and been told by her direct supervisor to drop it and focus on her assigned workload. She'd never found out what happened to the memo. I suspected it never made it past the second desk. I met Donna on a Wednesday evening at a coffee shop near her side of town. When I laid out what I was putting together, she slid a folder across the table before I'd even finished talking. "I kept a copy of everything I sent up," she said. "I figured someday it might matter." Pete Holloway came next. Senior staff accountant, 50 years old, 14 years at the company. Pete was the kind of man who noticed things in spreadsheets that other people's eyes just slid right past. He'd been quietly tracking a set of expense line items for 18 months, not because anyone asked him to, but because the pattern bothered him and he couldn't let it go. When I met Pete at a bar near his house on a Thursday night, he pulled out a legal pad covered in handwritten notes. "There's a subcontractor that's been receiving payments for 18 months, he said, turning the pad toward me. $180,000 total across 7 separate invoices. None of them went through standard procurement. All of them have Hank's sign-off and nothing else. You know who owns the company?" Pete tapped the name he'd written at the top of the page. "Gary Delaney." I sat back. "Hank's older brother. We never met as a group. Never used company phones or company email for any of this. I bought a prepaid phone for coordinating. We used an encrypted messaging app and met in different locations each time. Nothing near the plant, nothing on camera. It felt excessive at first. About a week in, it stopped feeling excessive. For 3 weeks after that, I got to the plant at 6 in the morning and didn't leave until 7 at night. I did my job exactly as well as I always had. Not because I was trying to perform, but because giving Hank even a minor legitimate complaint was not something I was willing to hand him. Every hour I wasn't on the floor, I was building the case. Pete traced the $180,000 across all 7 invoices and confirmed none of the contracts had gone through competitive bidding. Donna pulled the procurement records and found that the standard approval process had been bypassed every single time, signed off by Hank alone, no secondary review, no documentation of exceptions. Carl pulled his original department performance reports, the raw files saved on his personal hard drive before they went through Hank's office. Side by side with what had been submitted to Earl, the numbers had been adjusted downward on 3 departments. Mine, Carl's, and a 3rd department whose manager had left the company 6 months ago under circumstances nobody had talked about openly. Then Beverly Stanton found me. I didn't know Beverly well. She was Hank's executive assistant, had been for 3 years. I knew her by sight, knew she was good at her job, knew she kept her head down. I had no reason to think she'd ever talk to me. She came to me on a Tuesday evening in the stairwell at the B2 level. I was heading to my car. She was already there, standing against the wall with her arms crossed, looking like she hadn't slept in a few days. "I don't have much time," she said quietly. "But you need to know that Hank has been meeting with Earl about restructuring your division. They're talking about eliminating your position. The paperwork is already being drafted." I kept my voice level. "Why are you telling me this?" She reached into her jacket pocket and held out a small USB drive. "I've been saving files for 14 months. Calendar entries, emails, anything that looked wrong to me. I don't know if it's enough, but I figured someone should have it." She paused. "He told Earl last month that I should be replaced with someone who presents better." I heard it through his office door. I looked at the drive in her hand. "This is brave," I said. "It's practical," she said. Then she walked up the stairs and was gone. That night, I sat at my kitchen table until past midnight going through every file on that drive. By the time I closed the laptop, I had everything I needed. The question now was how to use it without giving the company a reason to bury it the same way they'd buried Donna's memo 8 months earlier. I made a fresh pot of coffee and started writing. Beverly's USB contained more than I expected. There were emails between Hank and Gary Delaney discussing contract terms before bids had even been posted. Not vague, back-and-forth emails that could be explained as casual conversation. Specific emails. Dollar amounts, scope of work, delivery timelines, all agreed on privately before the formal process ever opened. Then the formal process would open, Gary's company would submit a bid, and Hank would approve it with no secondary review and no documentation of why competing bids were rejected, or in several cases, why no competing bids were solicited at all. There were also calendar entries, lunches between Hank and Gary's business partner on dates that overlapped with active procurement windows. A few of them were logged under vague descriptions like vendor coordination or operations review. Most weren't logged at all, just visible as blocked time with no label. The worst thing on the drive was a memo. Internal, never routed through official channels, written by Hank and saved in a folder Beverly had labeled simply drafts. The memo recommended placing 3 senior employees on performance improvement plans as a preliminary step before a planned departmental restructure. My name was first on the list, Carl's was second. The third was a name I recognized, a logistics supervisor named Walter who had left the company 6 months earlier, officially described in the internal announcement as pursuing other opportunities. The memo was dated 7 weeks before the Tuesday in the conference room, before any of the quarterly numbers had even been finalized. The performance reviews that came back low on our departments weren't a reaction to poor results. They were preparation. Hank had been building the paperwork to push us out before he ever stood up in that meeting room and started talking about production delays. I sat with that for a while, then I printed everything, made 2 copies, and put them in separate locations. Here's what we built over the next 2 weeks. Pete compiled all 7 invoices into a single document with annotations showing the deviation from standard procurement protocol on each one. Donna wrote a formal summary of the bidding irregularities, cross-referencing the company's own procurement policy manual, section by section. Carl put together a side-by-side comparison of the raw performance data versus the adjusted figures that had gone up the chain, covering 3 departments over 2 years. I pulled it all together into a single packet and added Beverly's files as a separate exhibit. Then we built the dead man's switch. The idea was straightforward. We uploaded the full packet to a secure site, password protected. We set an automated delivery scheduled to trigger at 9 a.m. on a Friday, 72 hours after Donna's compliance presentation at the shareholder meeting. The trigger could only be disarmed by a confirmed action, specifically Hank's termination for cause, communicated in writing to each of us individually. If that confirmation didn't come before 9 a.m. Friday, the packet would go automatically to 3 places. The state's internal audit office, 2 journalists who covered corporate fraud in the manufacturing sector, and an employment attorney who had already reviewed a summary of the case and agreed to take it. We didn't tell anyone the system existed. We just made sure it was running. Donna was on the agenda for the annual shareholder meeting the following month. She had 8 minutes to present on routine compliance metrics, the kind of presentation that usually gets polite attention and no follow-up questions. We spent the next 10 days rehearsing how she would move from standard compliance review into flagging, calmly, and without warning, a set of specific irregularities in vendor procurement that required immediate executive attention. The night before the meeting, I couldn't do much of anything. I went through the packet one more time, checked the automated system twice, made sure Pete and Carl had everything they needed if something went wrong, and I needed them to act without me. At 11 p.m., Donna texted, "Ready." I put the phone down and tried to sleep. The next day, I was at the plant by 6, doing my job, running my floor, acting like it was any other Thursday. At 2:17 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Donna. He watched the full packet. Earl pulled 3 board members into a private session. Still in the room. I read it twice and set the phone face down on my desk. At 80:44 that evening, Earl asked me to stay over, said they will address this immediately. He thanked me. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for a few minutes. I didn't feel relief exactly. I felt something more like the way you feel when a machine you've been monitoring finally registers the reading you've been waiting for. Not surprise. Confirmation. The next morning I woke up to 2 missed calls from Donna and a text that said, "Check your email right now." There was a message from Earl Whitfield's office. Urgent video call, 9 a.m. sharp. The time on my phone when I read it was 8:46. I splashed water on my face, ran a hand over the stubble I hadn't had time to deal with, pulled on a clean shirt, and logged in from my kitchen table. Earl was sitting at a conference table with 3 board members and the company's general counsel. His face gave nothing away. He looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from a night of difficult decisions, not from bad sleep. "Mr. Callahan," he said, "we have reviewed a significant amount of information regarding Hank Delaney's conduct and financial activities. Information that appears to have been gathered by you and several colleagues over an extended period of time. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir," one of the board members leaned forward. "Why didn't you bring these concerns through proper channels?" "The ethics line, HR," I looked directly into the camera. "With respect, I did. Twice. Both times the complaints were closed without investigation, and your compliance coordinator flagged the vendor irregularities 8 months ago in a formal memo that never received a response." The room went quiet. Earl exchanged a look with the general counsel that I couldn't fully read, but I didn't need to. Earl cleared his throat. "Mr. Delaney has been placed on administrative leave effective this morning pending a full investigation. We would like you to come in today and provide a complete statement." "Of course," I said. "And Mr. Callahan," he paused, "I want to be direct with you. We don't condone the method by which this information was gathered and presented, but we recognize the position you were in, and we recognize that our internal systems failed to handle this when it should have been handled. I want you to know that." I nodded. "I appreciate that, sir. What I didn't say was that I'd heard variations of that sentence before from people in positions like his, and that what usually followed it was a quiet settlement, a mutual NDA, and a story that disappeared inside a filing cabinet. I'd built the last 3 months specifically so that outcome wasn't available to them. I gave my statement that afternoon. 4 hours, 2 attorneys present, a court reporter. I walked them through everything in sequence: the manipulated KPI reports, the procurement irregularities, the vendor relationship with Gary Delaney, the pre-written PPs, Beverly's files. I answered every question they asked and a few they didn't think to ask. Carl, Donna, and Pete each gave their own statements separately. Beverly gave hers by phone with her own attorney present. The week after that, a company attorney called me in and slid a non-disclosure agreement across the conference table. Financial consideration in exchange for a commitment to silence. The number on the page was not small. I read the whole document, all 14 pages, took about 20 minutes. The attorney sat across from me and waited. When I finished, I set it down and put my pen on top of it. "I won't be signing this." The attorney kept his voice professionally neutral. "Mr. Callahan, I want to make sure you understand the terms being offered. This is a very favorable arrangement given the circumstances. I understand the terms," I said. "But the documentation in this case isn't held by me alone. There are other people who have copies, and there is an automated system that has a deadline attached to it. That deadline is 9 a.m. this Friday. I have no mechanism to stop it unilaterally regardless of what I sign." I picked up my jacket from the chair back. "The only thing that disarms it is a confirmed termination for cause in writing to each member of our group. Until that happens, the system runs on its own schedule." The attorney looked at me for a moment. "I'd suggest whoever needs to make that decision makes it before Friday morning." I said, "Have a good afternoon." I drove home and waited. Friday at 3:47 p.m., my cell phone rang. Earl Whitfield, calling from his direct line. "Mr. Callahan, Hank Delaney has been terminated without severance, effective immediately. The board has approved an independent audit of all vendor contracts and performance evaluations going back 3 years. We will be issuing an internal statement Monday morning acknowledging systemic failures in procurement oversight and performance review processes and outlining the corrective actions being taken." I was sitting on my back steps. I looked out at the yard for a second. "Thank you, Earl." He was quiet for a moment, then, "Roy, I owe you a more direct apology than I gave you on that video call. This should have been caught internally. It wasn't, and people were hurt by that. I'm sorry. I thought about the right thing to say. I appreciate that. I mean it. The internal statement went out Monday. It didn't name Hank, but it didn't need to. Within 3 days, 2 trade publications were running pieces on accountability failures in mid-size manufacturing operations, citing anonymous sources describing the situation in considerable detail. Within a week, Hank's name was attached to those stories publicly. No company in the sector reached out to him after that. Scott Delaney left quietly about 3 weeks later officially to pursue other opportunities. Gary Delaney's subcontracting company lost its remaining contracts with the plant inside of a month. Carl got the department manager position he should have had 3 years earlier. Donna was asked to lead the compliance restructuring effort, reporting directly to the board. Pete was appointed to the newly formed Internal Financial Oversight Committee. Beverly was moved to a different department, given a 15% raise, and put on a formal advancement track for the first time in 3 years. I was offered Director of Operations, 21% salary increase, corner office on the 2nd floor, direct reporting line to Earl. I took it, and I worked that job for 8 months and did it right every single day. Then I resigned. My letter was one paragraph. Earl came by my office while I was boxing things up. He leaned against the doorframe and watched me for a moment. "You changed this company, Roy." I kept folding things into the box. I didn't change it. I just stopped letting it bury the people who were doing the actual work. He nodded slowly. "What's the firm called?" "Callahan Operations Group." "Expect a call from our procurement office in about 6 weeks. We're going to need outside help building the new oversight systems." He left. I finished packing, carried the box out to my truck, put it in the back seat, and drove out of that parking garage for the last time. Callahan Operations Group started in a spare bedroom with a laptop, a whiteboard, and a used office chair. Carl, Donna, and Pete came on as partners. Our first 4 clients were former colleagues who had moved on to management roles at other plants and remembered how we ran things. The old company hired us 6 months after I left. The contract rate came in at 40% above my old salary. I sleep fine now. The Tuesday in that conference room doesn't weigh on me the way it used to. What stays with me isn't Hank screaming or the silence of 28 people who didn't say a word. What stays with me is the clock above the exit sign and the feeling of walking out of that room at exactly the same speed I walked in. I knew something they didn't know yet, and I was patient enough to let it matter. If you're in a situation like this right now, someone above you taking credit for your work, manipulating the numbers to cover their own record, using their position to push out anyone who makes them look small, I'm not going to tell you it's easy to do what I did. It took months. It required patience that didn't come naturally and documentation that most people never bother with. But here's what I know. Document everything, every email, every report, every meeting where something doesn't add up. Find the people around you who've been treated the same way and have the same receipts. Understand exactly what rules were broken and who signed off on what. Then build something they can't quietly make disappear. Systems don't fix themselves, but sometimes you can put them in a position where they have no choice. That's all I've got, and I meant every word of it.